Blog Talk Radio.
We'll never see you again.
I dearly hope so, my Peterson. There is so much more I meant to tell you. Everything you know is about to change.
American Daily Review.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the founding fathers. Not too long ago, two friends of mine were talking to a Cuban refugee, a businessman who had escaped from Castro. And in the midst of his story, one of my friends turned to the other and said, "We don't know how lucky we are." And the Cuban stopped and said, "How lucky you are. I had some place to escape to." And in that sentence, he told us the entire story. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. And this idea that government is beholden to the people, that it has no other source of power except the sovereign people, is still the newest and the most unique idea in all the long history of man's relation to man. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves. Where then is the road to peace? Well, it's a simple answer after all. You and I have the courage to say to our enemies, there is a price we will not pay, there is a point beyond which they must not advance.
When America needed them most, two men rose to the occasion. Doug Gibbs of Constitution Radio and PoliticalPistachio.com. Jasnius of PoliticalPistachio.com, Constitution Radio, and the Hard Starboard Radio Network. This is American Daily Review on blogtalkradio.com.
to be kidding me. You're it. You're Black Plastic.
No, Jasmius.
Time to play the game. Time to play the game. It's all about the game, and how you play it, all about control. And if you can take it, all about your stay. And if you can play it, it's all about pay. And who's gonna make it? I am the game, you don't wanna play me. I am control, no way you can shake me. I am heavy debt, no way you can pay me. I am the pain, and I know you can't take me. Look over your shoulder, ready to run like a Cleveland bitch from a smoking gun. I am the game, and I may lose.
That for which you have been waiting 165 desperate hours has now arrived once again. Its time come round at last. It is the Saturday afternoon extravaganza, starting at high noon Pacific time, or rather 8 minutes ago, 3 p.m. On the East Coast at blogtalkradio.com/American Daily Review, a featured podcast of blogtalkradio.com on the main page, as a matter of fact, as well as at the show page at blogtalkradio.com/American Daily Review. I am one of your hosts, Jasmius. I am the host, benevolent despot, and all-around good guy who brings you the Hard Starboard Radio Network. Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific at blogtalkradio.com/HSR Network, where there are over 7 years worth of podcasts for your downloading pleasure, your education, edification, enlightenment, and entertainment in all your life's endeavors. And you know what else? There are 5 years worth here at blogtalkradio.com/American Daily Review for your downloading enjoyment. That's the 5th word starting with E. I always seem to forget that part, leave that out, but I spread it around some too, you know. Guys, call in number 646-595-4520, or if you prefer the radio version, 646-595-4520. My email address, jasmius@comcast.net. The chat room is open, and yes, I have split myself in two. I am my own blue plate special. In fact, if I wanted to take the time to do it right now, I could split myself into thirds. It's the only way I can lose weight. But there's a lot of stuff to cover today on the Saturday afternoon extravaganza. There are a total of 9 big stories this week, 7 of which we will cover here in the first hour and change on American Daily Review. The other 2 exclusive to Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs, the flagship program of the Saturday afternoon extravaganza. Over at KCAAradio.com, globally KCAA AM 1050, and in the very near future, FM 106.7. 106.7 on your FM dial. Locally in San Bernardino, Loma Linda, California, the Southern California Inland Empire area, or as I affectionately refer to it, the long, wide stretch of wasteland between Los Angeles and San Diego, made famous by the movie Terminator 3, and also made famous by the Fox News correspondence provided this past summer, a mere 2 months ago, by this man.
I am Douglas V. Gibbs, and I see a whole army of my countrymen here in defiance of tyranny. You've come to fight as free men, and free men you are. What will you do with that freedom? Will you fight? Aye. Fight and you may die. Run and you'll live. least a while. And dying in your bed many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?
In every revolution, there's one man with a vision.
Perhaps today is a good day.
Douglas V. Gibbs.
He's the one.
Ladies and gentlemen, the man who waits all week for that introduction, Douglas V. Gibbs.
I've got to get me one of those. Oh, boy. I ought to have you just email it to Joe. That's what I need you to do one of these days.
Hey, I'll be
that's
happy
pretty
to
good.
do it.
I like it. That's pretty good.
I'll be happy to do it.
Oh, yeah. Well, and, you know, having, you know, the Braveheart, you know, quote in there, you know, him, you know, doing his thing is good for two reasons. Number one, because I think it fits what we're trying to do. And number two, because Scotland's getting ready to do it again.
I noticed.
Yeah.
Oh, the British Isles are breaking up.
Now, here's what's funny about it. Who on Political Pistachio wrote about this weeks ago before everybody started talking about it? That's right. Yours truly, my friend.
Yeah, that would be Douglas V. Gibbs. So,
tell you,
yes.
I just have a knack.
A knack.
I have a knack for knowing what the hell is going on. But, no, and it really isn't that. No, it isn't that I can predict or anything or have a knack. It's just I'm willing to report it now, and the liberal media tries to hold off until they actually have to. You know, some of these stories. So.
Well, you have good instincts, laddie. You have good instincts, and you tend to know what's going on, laddie.
Now, let me tell you something before we get started with all this stuff. Let me tell you what happened last night. I've got to tell you. 2 days ago, the day before yesterday, that would be Thursday, right before I went out to do my Constitution class there in Temecula, California, I finished the basic Constitution, the text of the book, the body of the book. What I was going to do is send it out to all my proofreaders. As is, I was going to worry about the glossary and putting together the bibliography, and because bibliography is quite extensive, it's a lot of work. That's going to need to go into that. Index, all that jazz. I was going to hold off and do that while the proofreaders, so I could, kind of kill two birds with one stone. Went to bed about 9:30 last night, maybe somewhere between 9:30 and 10. My son. His wife had gone out to hang out with her friends, and because he's, a good husband, let's just say that none of the girls wanted to be a designated driver. My son decided he would be, so he was just waiting for the phone call, and then he would go at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, whatever time it may be, to take all the gals home and bring his wife home. Well, it turned out they were walking distance from one of the friends' houses, and they decided just to walk to her house and just spend the night there. But anyway, so knowing that my son was going to get up at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning to go get his wife and play designated driver, I said, why don't you have the kids spend the night at our house, because I would hate for you to pull them out of bed in the middle of the night. And my wife said, no. We've already got the littlest one because she doesn't feel good. The last thing I need is 3 kids. I got to work tomorrow. And see, here's what happened. Last time the kids spent the night, I was, because of my back pain, I get about 2 or 3 hours sleep in a bed, then I move to the chair and I get a couple hours, then I move to the couch, get a couple hours, then I might move back to the bed or back to the chair. That's just life for me. So last time the kids spent the night and they're in the respective rooms, I'm in the chair and I'm having trouble sleeping. My eyes are wide open and suddenly I see a shadow walking down the hallway towards the bedroom. About an hour later, I see another shadow walking down the hallway towards the bedroom, and then about half an hour after that, the third shadow walking down the hallway to our bedroom. I get up in the morning to find my wife with bags under her eyes and 3 laughing children all on the bed with her. So she says, I've got to go to work tomorrow, she says last night. Camila, that's the baby, she's 1.5. That's all I can take. I can't take no more. So I said, okay, that's fine, Chris. When you need to go, give me a call. I'll come over to your house and be home with the girl, the boy and the girl, the 6-year-old and 3-year-old. So if there's adult supervision, I'll take my computer with me. I mean, I'm sleeping on the couch. Just give me a call and that'll wake me up. I'll get up. No problem. It's no big deal. I mean, because I just don't think that the kids should have to be dragged out of bed in the middle of the night. At 1:30 in the morning, I awakened, went to the bathroom. After I was done with my potty break, I was walking back to the chair saying to myself, crap, I'm not tired enough to go back to sleep. My son sends a message saying, hey, Dad, don't worry about it. They went to her friend's house. So I sat down at my desk in my office at 1:30 in the morning and got to work. I have been up since 1:30, and 2 5-hour energy drinks later, I am happy-go-lucky driving to the studio. But here's what happens. It's amazing what one can do when hopped up on 5-hour energy drinks, not enough sleep, and a completely silent house except for the snoring in the distance in the far bedroom. And trust me, that woman can stall logs. No. That woman can stall logs. That's all I got to say. She says I snore. But anyway, I'm surprised the neighbors aren't calling the police for noise disturbance with the way she snores. But anyway,
either that or another minor earthquake.
Yeah, I like sleep with her snoring. Once I do get to sleep, I'm a very sound sleeper. My problem is my back always wakes my butt up. But anyway, so last night, or should I say early this morning, I completed the bibliography. I completed the glossary. I did a little more proofreading for the entire book, scanning through it and using the grammar check and all that jazz. Got the 2... put the 2 whatchamacallits. Copied over the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence in the book and established how I'm going to do my index. I pretty much finished the entire book, everything that needs to be done to it except for the index. I say plural indexes because there's going to be actually 3 of them. I'm going to have an index by article. In other words, you go to the first index, Article 1 is on pages this, pages that, where someone has a handy quick where it's nothing but articles. So if they're looking for something specifically, they can go to that index. Then an index of constitutional concepts. In other words, only things like separation of powers, voting rights, whatever. And then the main index, which will have everything all together. That way, for the other 2 are for quick reference. I got more done in 5 hours this morning.
Yeah, in other words,
over weeks.
Well, in other words, most of them are appendices as opposed to indices.
Yeah, that's the word I was trying to think of earlier. The appendix is the Constitution, the Declaration.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess they could be considered appendixes also. But anyway, so that and then I still had enough energy and time to do this work on the show and do a lot of other things. You'll notice that you've got your list at the time you're supposed to, or at least close to it.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, no problem.
Yeah. Yeah, well,
everything's set up?
My goal is 8:30. The reason why 8:30 is that's 3.5 hours before this show starts, and that's more than enough time to read through. And if you're anything like me, and I know you are, you pretty much got these stories down anyway. I could not send you crap, start naming stuff off, and we would have a great discussion on, because like myself, you are very, very politically informed. But nonetheless, it's nice to be able to read the articles. It's still nice to be able to read the articles and, brush up or whatever.
Oh, yeah, especially since we write most of them. So. Yeah, I'm very conversant on my own stuff. Yes. You need trade.
I have to admit, it's rare that I put stories that did not show up on Political Pistachio the previous week. However, that does sometimes happen. Sometimes I do throw stuff on there that you go,
oh yeah.
Wow,
where
did that come from?
Yeah, there are quite a few this week, as a matter of fact.
I kind of wanted. You'll notice three of them kind of have a theme that they follow back to back to back about being sick, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But anyway, so after all of that said, the basic Constitution is almost completely done. It's going out to proofreaders, you being one of them, hopefully tonight or tomorrow. And I put a lot of effort into this one. See, 25 Myths, there was actually a lot of really dumb mistakes in it. It was the first thing that went out. And I was really embarrassed by that, to be honest with you. So I had to actually, and the thing is, I sent it out with only one proofreader or two proofreaders. And they didn't catch them either. And, really, really just dumb mistakes, like, prosperity instead of posterity, things like that. I really, really, really combed through this one. And if there's going to be things that people are going to catch, it's going to be, you really should have worded it this way instead of that way, and then it'll be a matter of opinion, and I'll probably say, nah.
Yeah, I remember that. I did quite a bit of that on 25 Myths, and you said, no, I want it to look that way. Okay, whatever.
Yeah, because there are certain ways I did want to put certain things. And also, a lot of my writing, and this is, part of it's natural because I've read the founders' writings so much that it's kind of rubbed off on me, and partly because I want to keep it in their style, but I tend to write a little bit in their style in many ways, capitalizing words that, for example, wouldn't normally be capitalized, things like that. But I actually kind of left that alone a little bit, not a lot. I mean, capitalization I still kind of hung on to a little bit, but like some of the words that they would use, like whilst and, things like that we don't necessarily use anymore. But
and people would look at it and say, what?
Am I reading the Bible here?
The word firmament thereof does not appear anywhere in the United States Constitution, folks. Don't panic.
Hey, thou shalt not argue with a constitutionalist. No,
I'll buy that, certainly.
Well, I'm really proud of this book. And here's what's scary about it. I cut out a lot of stuff. I condensed it quite a bit from what it was originally supposed to be, which was the Patriot's Guide to the Constitution. That book will be redone later, and it's thicker, meaner, more detailed. It's for the people who really want to get into some of the deeper stuff. And this is still a long-ass book. It's like 3, maybe 4 times as long as 25 Myths. I thought it would be about double. And it's like between 3 and 4 times as long. So it's, now granted, the appendices, should I say, probably add a little bit of that, but all I can say is when I drop the font from 12 to 11, it gets a little more manageable in length.
And much harder to read for some of us, but we'll manage.
Well, some of these books, they get down, the print's so small you can't read them. Most people can read 12, and 11 is so close to 12 it's not that big of a deal. But once you get down to 10, that's starting to get difficult. So,
yes.
Yeah, 11 is pretty much my limit. That's like my friend Mobley's book. You know, he reduced it down, I think, 8 or 9 it looks like, and I almost have to get out a magnifying glass to read his book, and his book's so thick you could fuck someone over the head and kill him with it. Don't get me wrong, I love Mobley. He's a good guy, but he's a very...
I was going to say, his book gave me premature crow's feet.
Yeah. Not only that, but he writes in a very, very different style. He's very much more, what's
rambling?
the word? No, I didn't say that. No,
I did.
He's so analytical, sometimes it's to a fault. But see, the thing is, for the person who really wants a deep analytical analysis, he's the writer you want.
Well, yeah, he's a systems analyst. He's a systems analyst, so yeah, I mean that just comes naturally. Mm-hmm.
Right, and so from that point of view, they're great books. But most readers are not deep analytical thinkers. Most readers want it in a language they can understand, and so that's how I try to write. I try to fully explain every little thing I put without it being so overdone that you feel like it got repetitious. And then repeat it, and then repeat it.
Most people are, for most people, Tuesdays with Maury is their speed. You have to have the on-ramp first before you can get onto the 8-lane highway. That's a good way to approach it. Mm-hmm.
Well, now this book, one of the things I'm going to do with this book also is, this is what I am going to be working on now while my proofreaders have it and after I finish the indexes, is a workbook. And the workbook is going to integrate a lot of information that's already in my handouts for the classes, but also a few extra things I still need to create, like quizzes, things like that. The handbook, or the workbook, should I say, is, it's going to have the terms. It's going to use the terms in understandable sentences so you understand it. It's going to have a questions for discussion, as well as a further explanation on some of the resources, and of course quizzes that are taken directly from the book. And that way the person has the opportunity to really kind of work through what I wrote so they can learn it. Because we only retain 10% of what we're told, and probably just a dash more, maybe 12% of what we read. The average person, I actually retain real well, but the average person, they're barely in the double digits in the percentage of what they're going to remember. They have to, it's like there's people in my class that have got this class 2 or 3 times before they really kind of got it, and that's fine. That's the average person. So I want the workbook to assist in that, and also the workbook will be a part of the seminars I'm going to start doing. But anyway, okay, enough of all that jazz. Appreciate you giving me the time. Got a lot of stories to go. I'm tempted just to change the name of this from 5 Big Stories a Week to just Big Stories of the Week, because I never know what I'm going to wind up with. I always wanted, the reason why I tried 5 big stories, I always wanted to limit it to 5 stories, because I knew going beyond 5 would be a little tough, but it's tough to keep it down to 5 stories. So,
well, it's like I said last week, we, as the Chinese curse states, we live in interesting times. Oh, yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, if you don't want times to be interesting, vote better.
Yeah, that actually brings up a thought, a little rabbit trail here. I hear from conservatives a lot about term limits, and I've got people in my class, term limit this, term limit that. California has term limits, and it's been absolutely destructive. It's been horrible.
It's almost like politics is a profession after all.
Well, the thing about term limits is when you do get someone worth a damn, you can't keep them. First of all, and I don't want a president without term limits. I think the fact that it's limited to 2 terms is a good thing. But when it comes to local politics, state politics, and even the House and the Senate, you do want some experience in those locations. Now, the problem is the voters say, well, only 17% of the voters approve of what Congress has been doing. They say, well, Congress sucks. My guy's okay, but all the rest of them, they suck.
Yeah,
so
which is
their guy in.
Well, of course. I mean, it's always been that way. Congress, first of all, polling Congress in general is a waste of time because they're always going to be, the numbers are always going to be subterranean. And the reason they're always going to be subterranean is because Republicans don't like what Democrats are doing and Democrats don't like what Republicans are doing. So they're all going to say, oh, it sucks for the opposite reasons, but it reinforces the same poll number.
And then the Libertarians hate both parties.
Well, yeah, but there aren't that many Libertarians, actually. But
well, there's plenty of Libertarians, but most of them have enough sense to realize they still need to at least have one foot in the GOP room.
Oh, yeah. Big L versus small L. Yes.
Yeah, and then you got those Libertarians, two-party systems, the reason for all of our problems. And also, they're the ones that caused 9/11. Those Libertarians.
The ones that love pontificating more than actually trying to get in a position to fix problems.
Yeah, the Alex Jones, the Jesse Ventura Libertarians. Not as much a Ron. Now, I don't want to necessarily throw Ron Paul into that mix, although Ron Paul Libertarians tend to be that way. But most Ron Paul Libertarians I meet really, really, really desire a constitutional government, and they have an open enough mind to hear all sides. So I'm not going to hammer on the Ron Paul Libertarians. There are some of them that, first of all, I don't want to, go after anybody who, is going to side with me part of the time, and secondly, I don't want to alienate a part of the audience. No, that's not the reason. Reason is because I do like Ron Paul about 80% of the time. Unfortunately, 20% of the time, he's completely crazy. That's the problem. But I love Rand Paul, and a lot of the Ron Paul folks have kind of moved towards Rand Paul and they kind of understand some of the realities of politics. I admit I hate the two-party system too. If I wish we could just get rid of the party system and just vote for the guy. The problem is party systems are in our human nature. If we were to, hypothetically just eliminate the parties right now, no parties, let's go. All right, we're just going to vote the man. An issue comes up. You're going to get your group that's for it. You're going to get your group that's against it. They're going to organize. They're going to pick leaders, and boom, you've got two parties again.
Yeah, the two-party system was never planned by the Founding Fathers, but it just naturally evolved. I mean, it evolved into the Democratic Republicans on one side, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, and the Federalists on the other side, Alexander Hamilton, George Washington, etc. So it's just the way it. In fact, it's really
don't throw George Washington in there. He was non-party. He did not belong to any party. And he chose people from both sides to be in his
That's how he
cabinet.
tried to govern in his first year or two. After his first term, he was pretty much a partisan Federalist after that.
Well, he was giving
because
into
that's
them,
how it
but he was very reluctant about it often. It's like when he signed the United States Bank Act. He did so reluctantly, and he said so. The difficulty with George Washington, as much as I love him and think he's one of the greatest presidents we ever had, I think he was a man of honor. I think he was honest. I think he
the greatest president we ever had.
Well, among them. And I do believe that he was a great man. But I think that he tried to make both sides happy too much, and so sometimes he was willing to compromise too much. Now, and out of that really began it already existed, but it really was fomented, was the rivalry between Jefferson and Hamilton. But Washington wasn't a Federalist. He may have been willing to side with them every once in a while, albeit reluctantly, but he was neither party. He didn't really choose sides, and the parties actually emerged during his first term. But anyway, to get away from that, though, because I really want to get on what we need to talk about here, because I'm like halfway to the station. We haven't done a single story the
story
first
number
honorable mention. Yeah, it's
story
all about
number
the NFL. here's the thing.
Yeah.
Well, here's the way I titled it, and I'm going to explain why. Ray Rice, Adrian Peterson, and a narrative the left desires. See, remember, the left's not happy unless they're controlling things, unless people are victims, unless they're, condemning things. And their assault on the NFL began with concussions. They, deep down, they want to shut football down or control it with the government, and they have a few times. They, in the sense of pressure on the NFL. And trust me, the NFL is full of your leftists anyway. This narrative suddenly emerging, how every football player that gets in trouble with the law is suddenly a front page story. That's not an accident that they're slapping it on the front page. These guys are all. It's the nature of. It's an unfortunate thing, but it is in the nature of people who have never really had to go through normal process of growing up. They're young and rich, that they don't really completely grow up, and they do stupid stuff. Football players, sports figures getting into legal trouble or doing stupid stuff, that's nothing new. However, it's plastered all over every news story, and I think because it fits the liberal narrative that ties into the narrative that they started with the concussion.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm sure you've seen or heard George Carlin's old baseball and football routine.
Yeah. How that's one of the funniest things I've ever.
Oh well, yeah. And the gist of it is, without going into reciting parts of it, but the gist of it is that Carlin observed that football is militaristic and violent and military, and reminiscent of the military-industrial complex, so on and so forth. Whereas baseball is all about going home. I'm going home. And so, football is cuts directly against the temperamental, instinctive grain of the left. The left is pacifistic. The left believes America shouldn't be assertive, that American exceptionalism is wrong, that so on and so forth. The Obama doctrine, basically. And so the idea of football and violence and hitting, and they just don't like that. And so when you have stories like this that come along,
and they don't like competition. So trust me, baseball eventually will be on their list as well. But
but it's way down the list. Eventually, we'll all be playing soccer.
No. Eventually, they'll even go after that. Eventually, what they want us to do is just pushing hoops across the lawn.
Hula hoops,
like the Amish do. Yeah, like the Amish do. I don't know if
the Amish are religious though, so that wouldn't work.
Well, yeah, but the Amish don't have competitive sports. If you go to the schoolyards, the kids don't play competitive games. They
cooperate. So in the interest of time, the two stories in question. In fact, I was aware that Adrian Peterson didn't play in the Vikings 34-6 win over the St. Louis Rams last Sunday, but I never bothered looking up why. I thought maybe he might be hurt or something. But it turns out that he was, he has since been arrested and released on $15,000 bail on charges of child abuse. Apparently, he's got a number of children, and one of them did something to one of his other kids, and so he took what he called a switch, but which the CBS affiliate in Houston, Texas, referred to as a tree branch, and gave what Adrian Peterson himself described gave to his son what Adrian Peterson himself described as a whooping. A whooping which, by the way, left welts on the child's back, not just his buttocks, but his back and his scrotum, and the backs of his legs. And something tells me that Mr. Peterson, the Vikings All-Pro running back, got a little carried away with his whooping.
Either that or they got a little carried away with the reporting. I don't know which.
Well,
one of the things I loved about my dad growing up is he would not spank us angry. He would make us go to our room. He would make sure he was calm. Then he would come in later and he would give us very controlled spankings with a belt or a switch or a paddle. Of course, as children, our little talk to each other was, yeah, when Dad gets home, it's basically let the beatings begin. But I survived. I'm a better man for it, I think. I only spanked my kids a handful of times with the belt. I've got more fingers than times I think I spanked them combined. Not because they didn't deserve it, but because my wife is, let's just say she's a psychology major. So she says, put them on timeout and let them think about what they did wrong. I said, no. You put them on timeout and they think about how they'll get away with it next time.
They think how they already got away with it.
Yeah, so I have to spank them, in privacy. So they would freak out if Mom actually went to the store without me and they were left alone with me. But anyway, all right, next story. Honorable mention: sick religion of peace. I told my mom earlier this week about a story where I'm sorry.
Ben Carson, or excuse me, not Ben Carson, Ray Rice. We don't want to forget about Ray Rice.
Oh, you know what? And the interesting email that we got about your Ben Carson deal. Yeah,
well, assuming it was, the emailer in question seemed confused as to where he actually read or heard about it.
What happened was, as I realized later, is he heard someone on the radio say something much harsher than what you said, decided to look it up. Your article came up, figured the two people must be one and the same, and accused you of, whatever. And the way I approached it was, he's probably a little more harsher on Tea Party people than I am, and I tend to defend them. But hey, this is my writer. I'm not gonna put a muzzle on this guy. If you don't like what he writes, don't read what he writes. There's two or three of us that write on this site.
I mean, the short of it is that for now Baltimore Ravens running back Ray Rice last February was seen in a video dragging his unconscious then-fiancee, now wife, they've since married, out of a hotel elevator in New Jersey. He wasn't charged, but he was suspended by the NFL for 2 games pending the outcome of an investigation. Well, video came out this week that showed the rest of the incident in that Atlantic City hotel elevator. It quite clearly shows Ray Rice bludgeoning his then-fiancee, now wife, unconscious.
And nobody believes that the NFL and Goodell, more specifically, had not seen that video prior to last week.
Oh, no. Roger Goodell. Now there are calls for Roger Goodell to step down as commissioner of the National Football League.
Sure.
They just can't believe it. Wow, you never saw that? How do you think she got that way?
TMZ has more pull than the NFL. Really? They were able to get it, and the NFL wasn't? Really? Yeah.
Well, my only point about it was that the NFL shouldn't have done anything until after they had the whole story. And once that video came out, that pretty much that fills in quite a few blanks, and after which it would have made their permanent suspension of Ray Rice and the Ravens' termination of his contract look a lot less craven, because they suspended him for 2 games first, and then this video comes out. First of all, there are a lot of people that can't believe the NFL didn't know about it, and it makes them look weak and reactive.
What it makes them look like is they're willing to do whatever they could to keep a good player on the field to make money. That's what it looks like. Now, my thought about it is I actually kind of side with those people on that, but not for their reason. I agree with you that they shouldn't have released any any punishment until they had the full story. But see, I believe they had the full story. I really do. I find it hard to believe that the TMZ was able to get a hold of video before the NFL. I really have trouble believing that. Now, that said, also, my feeling is this. It is a business, and it's their business on how they run their business, so we can have all the opinions we want, but in the end, what they do is their business.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the NFL suspended him because of public relations reasons, beginning and period, end of story. That's why they did it. Now, what Dr. Carson said is that he doesn't now. People may not be getting what Dr. Carson is saying about this completely correct either. Ben Carson is not excusing what Ray Rice did, not for one single solitary minute. What he is saying, based on his own personal experience, which is what that emailer was talking about, is don't demonize him because there may be more problems going on here than we're aware of. Now, Dr. Carson himself, when he was a teenager, one time tried to stab somebody. Now, because of the strategic location of a belt or a belt buckle or something, the knife didn't penetrate. But he says now that if my aim had been a little bit better, I wouldn't be sitting here as a potential presidential candidate, much less a renowned pediatric neurosurgeon.
What he's saying is the environment plays a large part, and this guy may be just a product of his environment. And I will agree partially that the environment does play a part, but in the end, we're still individuals. We still have the ability to say yes or no, and beat the crap out of your woman in an elevator. I don't care what your environment is or was, is wrong.
Yes. Without question.
But here's what's even more wrong than that, is that the woman still married the jerk.
See,
either he's psychotic or she's super psychotic, one or the other, or both.
Well, I mean, that's what kind of muddies the waters a little bit. Why? I mean, if he's such a horrible Neanderthal ogre abuser, why did she marry him anyway? Well, then people come back with, battered wife syndrome. It's things about the mentality that can arise where they think they deserved it, or they wondered, what did I do to make him do that to me? And so that happens, but in this context, it muddies the water a little bit. It makes it.
Yeah, well, and in the end, people's got to be able to make choices, and that's and we're so busy proclaiming victimhood and all that, and I am not in any way saying she isn't, but on the same token, we have choices, and so. She had the choice of not continuing with that relationship, and I get it. It's scary. I haven't been in that kind of relationship. I haven't been. I was going to joke around and say I haven't been beaten by my husband, but in the end, there is a choice. Now, once again, I'm not taking away from the fact that she was wrong. She was beaten, and it was wrong of Ray Rice, and he's an idiot, and he deserves the full suspension. And any team that, if ever he comes off of that indefinite suspension, any team would be probably idiots for taking him. But then again, with the Raiders' history, I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, you know what? Remember the name Richie Incognito from last year?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is he on an NFL roster? Is he on an NFL roster? I wouldn't be surprised if he is, and I wouldn't be surprised if not this season, but I wouldn't be surprised if Ray Rice is eventually in the NFL again.
He's a talented player, and
and plus, you have to remember something. Even if he never is, it's not like assuming that he doesn't go berserk and start, and knock her unconscious again or worse. The Rices are not going to have a bad life. Don't feel sorry for that.
I'll tell you right now, whatever team he goes to, here's what the head coach is going to say to him. But wasting all of that great aggression on a woman and take it out on the players on the field.
Indeed.
Okay, now, honorable
story
mention
number
of sick religion of peace. Yeah, sick religion of peace. My mom, I told her a few days ago about this story that I'd come across at Jihad Watch, where what was happening was the heads of the beheaded were being kicked around as soccer balls. Now, and I was disgusted by that. Then I come across a video about Islamic jihadists slicing open a mouse to suck the blood out of it. I mean, all kinds of just ridiculous.
Oh, I saw that video just this morning, just last night. Yeah.
The crap that comes out about Islam is downright demonic. It's sick. That's what this religion is. Now, it's a political ideology, and someone said to me something very fascinating. Once these people get into the jihad mode, it's like a feeding frenzy. It's like it overtakes them, and it becomes a bloodlust.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. It makes you wonder.
And I get it. I know there's all you people out there, yeah, but what about the moderate Muslims? Well, they're irrelevant, just like the Germans were irrelevant against the Nazis. The fact is, this is what Islam teaches. This is the feeding frenzy, the bloodlust that is emerging, and it's going to get worse before it gets worse.
I use the analogy of the United States during the Second World War, and let me explain what I mean real briefly. At the time of the Second World War, the population of the United States was approximately 160 million people. At the height of its participation in the Second World War, the United States had 12 million people under arms. Now, does that mean that the other 150 million or so Americans were not involved in the war effort or didn't support it? Not at all. It just means they were not actually in uniform, actually fighting on the battlefronts and on the water and in the air and so on and so forth. So, in the same way, moderate Muslims, they may not be wielding Kalashnikovs and they may not be hacking people's heads off their shoulders, but they still support it. They still support it spiritually. They still support it financially. You know, all these Muslim Brotherhood fronts in the West, the American the Council of American Islamic Relations, and these other front organizations that raise money that go to jihadist groups. So the moderate Muslims are not directly involved, but they still support it. And they don't condemn things like this. I mean, well, there are some in Britain who are starting to do it now because it's just become so egregious that they feel like they almost have to. But did anybody really believe it? I mean, you have Quran passages like the following: "When you meet the unbelievers, strike their necks," or "The only reward of those who make war upon Allah and His Messenger and strive after corruption in the land will be that they will be killed or crucified, or have their hands, feet, and alternate sides cut off, or will be expelled out of the land. Such will be the degradation of the world, or their degradation. And in the hereafter theirs will be an awful doom." I mean, that the Quran, you know, it's not that the Quran. One thing that Barack Obama said the other night in his masturbation proclamation on Wednesday night, he said, or when he said that Islam, you know, the Islamic State is not Islamic, and he followed that up by saying that no religion condones violence against innocents. Well, there's two things to note about that. One, Islam doesn't condone violence against innocents. It commands it. And the other thing to remember is, and the other thing to remember about Islam is that in Islam, according to the Quran, the only innocents are Muslims. The infidels are not innocent. They are guilty of blasphemy for not bowing down to Allah. So in the Muslim mind, when they're hacking the heads off Christians kidnapping Christian girls in the Middle East and gang raping them, killing them, and shoving crucifixes down their throat. I saw a picture of that just yesterday as well. They don't see the infidel, so to speak, as being innocent. They don't. They see him as being guilty.
Them
killing
an infidel is no different than tax in your house.
Well, in a perverse sort of way, Obama was right. No religion condones the slaughter of innocents. It's just Islam. It's just the difference is in how we define innocence and how Muslims. And he doesn't bother to elaborate upon that.
And when I give that moderate Muslim argument, when that's presented to me, almost every time I ask the question, ask your moderate Muslim friend, Israel is a separate state. And also gauge the anger in their answer. Has an Iranian couple who moved in across the street, and she's gotten to know the woman quite well. And the woman kind of talks about Islam the same way my friend Dean Safe does. I wasn't, she basically says the same thing he says. I wasn't really a practicing Muslim, but I was too fearful to do otherwise. And my mom asked about the local mosque in Corona, and the woman said, I'm not going to that mosque. The mosques teach hate. This is coming from a woman straight over from Iran. Even the so-called moderate Muslims understand to a point. Now, this woman, however, does not say Allah. She says God, and God is loving. I wonder if she's been influenced by the Christian God in a number of ways. But in the end, the ideology itself is not a religion. It is a political ideology that uses religion to create the fervor, to create the feeding frenzy, to create the bloodlust, create warriors that are willing to even go to the point of killing themselves for the sake of the ideology. In Islam, there is no separation of church and state because the church is the state and the state is the church. And like I said, we see a bloodlust, we see a feeding frenzy because they do it in the name of a religion, so that fervor is there, and then because of human nature, once they get that taste of blood, all fall short of the glory of God. And our evil flesh, if we allow it to, can become entranced by sin, by murder. And that's what's happened with these people.
Including their kids. Kids playing soccer with severed heads. Kids posing with Kalashnikovs, standing next to the crucified body of a captured rebel or infidel.
What they're taught is no different than a rat, no different than a dog, no different than a pig that has gone to the slaughter.
You know, I mean, for people who believe that nobody could possibly be that barbaric, that bloodthirsty, well, you know what? If that's what you're taught from the cradle, then or the equivalent thereof, then you know, people are capable of enormous evil if they're unfortunately set in that direction. Moving on to story number 7, or the third honorable mention.
Yeah, getting sicker, not only in West Africa with Ebola, but right here in the United States with a respiratory illness. But Ebola, I mean, they're looking at it spreading to as many as 15 countries that are not, that may have some cases, but are not overwhelmed yet. But this is moving fast. Now, here's the thing: Ebola is not an easily transmitted disease, but it's being transmitted with ease because there is a stigma with having Ebola in your family, and so cases are not being reported. That, combined with the fact that healthcare is not exactly in the greatest shape out in that part of the world, and with certain tribal attitudes, it's spreading, and it's spreading massively.
As in, if the estimates, the transmission rate, the current transmission rate of Ebola is 1.4 to 1.7 people for every new person infected. Now you can just do your multiplication tables, and you can see how far and how fast that can spread, that can increase. They were not. It wasn't too long ago. They were talking about 20,000 cases this year. Now they're talking 20,000 cases a month. By the end of the year, by the estimates are that in West Africa, there could be anywhere from 77,000 to 277,000 more cases by the end of this year. And how many? There's less than 4 months left in this year. Now that certainly qualifies as a pandemic to me. I don't know about anybody else. And bear in mind also that this strain of Ebola has anywhere from a 70 to 90% morbidity rate, or in other words, death rate. So
Ebola is a nasty disease that literally liquefies your internal organs and just.
Yes. It's horrible.
You start to sweat blood. And it's
sweat blood, cough blood,
liquefying.
vomit blood. Your insides dissolve. I mean, there may not be that many worse ways to die. It would be more than sufficient. That's not any kind of way to go. And how much longer? I mean, how much longer until it's in Asia, Europe?
I'm at the studio, by the way, but I'm at the studio, by the way, but I'm going to stay on the air as long as possible for us to get through these stories.
Okay, and then the other, of course, thing that came out this week, or emerged in the national news, is what they're calling a bizarre lung infection that has hospitalized several thousand school children in the American Midwest. Ohio, Illinois, Kansas, Missouri, and it just showed up in Colorado this week. And now the thing about this virus is it has been around before. I mean, they trace it all the way back to the 1960s, but it's just real rare.
And so because we don't see it very often, we don't have the ability to fight it off.
Yeah, it's called an enterovirus. And it appears and goes away, then appears and goes away, mutates and so on and so forth. The interesting thing that caught my eye, not just the thousands of it's concentrated in school children, and the first case arose that they know about arose in Ohio, and it started, bam, right after school started. Now. Let's think back a couple of months and all the undocumented minors that were pouring across. Remember what the Obama administration did with them. They put them all on planes and they shipped them around the country. And guess where they were going to end up? In our public schools. Now, here we are, just not even, a month and a half later. Because the school starts earlier, and at least it did in the part of Ohio where the first case of this bizarre lung virus showed up. As soon as school starts, bam, a disease that starts spreading through school children and now is spread across 5 states and hospitalized well over 1,000 school children.
Because all of these sick children have a right to an education, we're told, and have a right to immigrate. Remember, it's an immigration right. There's 138 million people ready to come over into the United States right now, by the way, because it's a right.
And there's no border anymore, so come on in. Lovely. That would bring us to story number 6. A new mosque, a satanic...
And, by the way, the title I used for it is "And Sicker." So
And
we had the sickness,
yeah,
and then sicker, and now even sicker.
The link is to the Detroit Free Press. A new religious group aims to bring the devil to Detroit. The Satanic Temple today marks the launch of its first chapter outside New York. That's interesting. The first place they go is the hotbed of American Islam. That's interesting. But leaders say they don't. They say they don't worship Satan. So it's, in other words, they're Satanists who don't worship Satan. That sounds like the Islamic State is not Islamic. That's what it sounds like. They don't practice cannibalism or sacrifice people or animals. Although personally, not yet. Yeah, they probably still slit the throats of mice and drink their blood, but they don't sacrifice small children, cats, dogs. Although who knows?
Innocent virgin.
Yeah. It's peaceful, said Jex Blackmore, 32, local leader and part of the temple's executive ministry. The sacrifice specifically is to appease some demon or some god, and that's a supernaturally we don't subscribe to. They do have a horned idol that they worship, though, which they're threatening to put up any place that any Christian group wants to put up a crucifix or the Ten Commandments, and they also say that as if Christians will just retreat into their four church walls, well then we won't put up our idols in public places, and if anybody believes that, then go stand on your head. Because that is exactly what would happen. In fact, a picture of one of its adherents, not surprisingly, she's covered in tattoos and she's wearing all black. So basically, she's a goth. As a fact, Jex Blackmore there's a picture of her here. Yeah, head to toe in tattoos and basically real life goth. So that's probably not all that real surprising.
And the thing is, of course, now what happens is, well, freedom of religion, Doug. I mean, freedom for your religion has to be freedom for their religion, right?
Well, I have to mention she's wearing an upside-down crucifix. So, nothing symbolic about that, is there?
No.
Maybe she likes the Apostle Peter. The Apostle Peter was crucified upside down, so maybe she likes the Apostle Peter.
Yeah, that's got to be it. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Okay. Well, now we're actually to the top 5, two of which we won't get to until the following hour in Constitution Radio.
Story number 5.
This could have been 5 stories on its own, because there's so many. Obama's like the 5 big stories a week on his own every week, and then some. So I just put them all together under the faltered president. And I don't know which is worse. His lack of strategy, his deciding that he has the constitutional authority to do whatever he wants, even though he doesn't. His arrogance. I mean, I don't know if you saw the Meet the Press video, but his arrogance and how I don't know. He epitomizes everything that the founding fathers were trying to protect us from.
Mm-hmm. I love the part where he blamed the border crisis on Republicans' refusal to pass comprehensive immigration reform.
No. If you read that carefully, he's blaming me. Because what did he say? The partisanship from a couple of months ago. Well, what was that?
Because, of course, you forced him to do what he's now deferred until after the election.
crazy myriad of people trying to defend our community, why that just really made it hard on him. He has no space now, but to defer it until after the election. Oh, but there's no political agenda or anything has to do with the election. That's just the timetable he chose. It just so happened to be after the election. I mean, don't think any different, people.
Oh yeah, see, that's how another example of the war the left wages on the language. The term partisan has been given by the left a very negative, a profoundly negative connotation, because you'll notice they never use the term partisan about themselves. It's always partisan conservatives, partisan Republicans. Oh, you're just being partisan. But of course, they're not partisan.
The definition of partisan has basically become whenever you disagree with the Democrats.
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, because of course Democrats doing what works. We're just doing what's right. That is the way of things. The left is right. The Democrats are right. And if you oppose the left, well, then you're evil and you're partisan and you're obstructionist.
You're immoral. Don't forget you're immoral if you
immoral. Yeah, I can't believe that.
Because they are the moral supremacists.
Barack Obama with his. That's why I call it the Wednesday's nationally televised address. I call that the masturbation proclamation, because it's much sound and fury signifying nothing. He gave a speech, the ostensible purpose of which was to lay out a strategy for defeating the Islamic State, and he went out and he gave the speech, and he didn't lay out anything. He just threw out bromides and cliches and generalities, which, here again, I've been saying it repeatedly over the last few weeks, to make himself look like he's doing something about the Islamic State without ever actually trying to do so.
Well, no, because he actually agrees with what they're doing, I think, deep down.
Well,
not the slaughter and the kicking people's heads around part, but the dominating Christians and Jews part.
Well, and just turning over the entire Middle East to the jihadists. I mean, that's everything he's done for the past dedicated toward that end.
But he feels they have to. That we have to, because it's all our fault.
Yeah, it's only fair.
It's
only fair. It's all about his perverse definition of fairness, and how dare we suppress Islam? How dare the West hold down what the people of the region naturally want? How dare the West, the Christian West, suppress natural Islamic culture? I mean, look at all that Islam has done to build up America.
And the thing is, all he's doing is working with world opinion. That's why he wants to create his coalition that he can't seem to put together. Because they all agree with, the whole world agrees with us on this. Just ask the Europeans.
Yeah, the grand coalition of 9. 9. 8 members.
And I think a couple of, wait a second, a couple of those, aren't they like Arab countries or something?
No, none of them are officially.
Okay.
There are 9 members in this grand coalition. By the way, President Bush had 37. In case you want to remember that.
But he did go it alone, according to them.
Yeah, he went it alone with 37 allies. Yeah, whereas Barack Obama is uniting with the whole world with 9 people. 8 of whom are NATO members, so he's not even close to a majority of NATO on his side.
By the way, my friends, NATO was created to protect us from the Soviet Union, to protect Europe, should I say, from Eastern Europe and the Soviet Union, which, wait a second, doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, yeah, for 25 years, NATO has been an organization in search of a mission.
Well, NATO has changed. Well, no, NATO has changed their mission just like NASA did.
Oh, yes, to reach out to Muslims. Yeah. How silly of me to forget. The 9th one, by the way, is Australia. So there's not a single Arab, Muslim, Middle East member of this grand coalition.
Well, Australia always works with us. There's something about Australia. They always work with us, right or wrong, in between. They're always there for us. Australians love Americans, even the dumb Americans.
They must love us a lot then.
and for all of you liberals out there, let me explain this in a way that you understand. When I went to Australia and I walked in the bar and they ordered a drink, immediately a woman walked over and said, "Are you an American? I love your accent." Of course, my first thought was, "Love my accent? Hell, your whole country has an accent." But
that was the first time to slip into my Crocodile Dundee persona.
Oh God! You're not going to pull an Alex on me, are you?
Pull a what?
Yeah, I'm going to have a Crocodile Dundee on one side and a Gabby Hayes on the other side.
Well, it still needs some work, but yeah, I mean, a person of German, an American of German extraction, impersonating an Australian accent. I mean, how could you beat that combination?
Who stars in American movies?
Yeah, absolutely. Who can drop his Australian accent at the drop of a hat? I mean, they all can. Chris Hemsworth
that amazes me.
Hugh Jackman can. I mean, it's remarkable. James Doohan could. He didn't even have a natural Scottish. I mean, he was from Canada, for crying out loud. He adopted that thick Scottish burr like putting on a comfortable jacket. Oh. Well,
you know, it amazes me because it seems like any of these actors from other countries can. I can't remember the guy's name off the top of my head now, but the guy who plays Rajesh Kuthapalli on Big Bang Theory, he was on Conan O'Brien last night. And, you know, and he sounded the same as he does on the show with that Indian accent. But I remember there was an episode where he was making fun of Howard and then took on Howard's American accent perfectly. Now, I don't care who. I mean, most people can't do an Indian accent perfectly, and if they do, they sound more like Abu from The Simpsons. Anyway, because that's the Indian accent they're used to.
Oh yes, that is the Indian accent that I'm used to impersonating.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Just and the problem is, every time I try to imitate a Ferguson, Missouri rioter, I sound like Cleveland.
No.
Okay, let's move on.
Story number 4.
Yeah, I mentioned that grand. It's a little bit to the I mentioned that grand coalition earlier, and I did mention Europe, how Europe just loves Obama. I almost broke out into laughter when I said that.
They don't trust him.
Here's the interesting thing about Europe, though. Europe has always been a pendulum swung way the hell over here, or the pendulum swung way the hell over here. The thing is, when it's swung way over to the left, because it goes so far to the left, they think that kind of to the left is way to the right.
That's what they think. The two examples of this. One, of course, wasn't it just earlier this year? I mean, it doesn't seem like it's been that long ago that Francois Hollande, the avowed French, was he a socialist or a communist? Not that it really matters, but
he basically frightened all of the rich French across the English Channel with his high tax rate. Is what he did.
Well, anyway, he got elected president of France. He replaced Nicolas Sarkozy, who was what in Europe passes for a conservative.
Right.
And he hasn't. It doesn't seem like he's been in office a full year. But before now, he is. Well, a poll came out, a recent poll that showed that if there was an election between French President Francois Hollande and Jean-Marie Le Pen, who heads the French National Front Party. He's kind of the French answer to Ron Paul. I mean, he's been around long time.
But understand, the French are so far to the left, Putin would be considered conservative to some of them.
To some of them. I mean, Le Pen has been, he's run for president 5 times. He's been around a long time.
He's almost as conservative as the KIP party there in Britain.
And but the thing that he's got a term here that kind of, it's kind of like a handle slash slogan. Now, the man's name is Jean-Marie Le Pen. But his progression in the late 1980s, as he was emerging as a major political figure in France, is known as La Pénétration d'Esprit, which, if you look at the word, and you got to be real careful not to mispronounce it, if you think about it. You know, like if you were going to pronounce it with an English pronunciation, it would be La Pénétration des Esprits. And that could be misunderstood, but that's one thing. That's one of the great things about French. You could be describing a pile of dog crap in French, and it sounds, mellifluous and poetic and elegant and sophisticated and cosmopolitan. Le Pénétration d'Esprit.
Well, Italian's kind of the same way. What's that pasta called penne? Pasta. But if you say penne and you say it too loud around someone who speaks Spanish, well, that means penis in Spanish.
Pinocchio.
Yeah, I would like some penne with my sauce, and someone looked at me like, what?
Yeah, special sauce. Then there is, of course, got to make mention of the United Kingdom Independence Party, which is kind of interesting. Apparently, since according to what you wrote last Sunday, they might actually stand a chance of being able to form the next government in Great Britain, in Parliament.
What's fascinating about it is they are a third party.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so all you third-party people, don't get excited. It's taken a long time to get to this point to become a second party, and maybe first party.
Well, and also Britain, of course, is a parliamentary system.
Right. So basically, the prime minister isn't elected like our president is. He's basically the lead legislator in their parliament of whoever has the majority.
Basically, the equivalent here would be John Boehner, the lower house of the legislature.
So, folks, imagine John Boehner or Pelosi as president because the majority party has control.
Or prime minister, as the case may be.
Yeah, it's enough. It's enough to make me puke too.
Oh, it is? Well, it hasn't happened yet, so I'll spare us the barfing sound effect. And finally,
story number 3.
Well, speaking of making me want to puke, did you see what Pelosi had to say about if the GOP won the Senate? It'll be the end of all civilization. And the thing is, she's serious. That's really crazy.
Oh yeah, that's what's so much fun about Nancy Pelosi. She says things like this, but she's so sincere. It's like she really believes it. It's hilarious. By the way,
if the GOP gets control, it's the other civilization. Those extremists are so extreme.
Oh, by the way, she said that on Bill Maher's program, so that's probably not all surprising.
Yeah, nothing like someone like Bill Maher to bring out the crazy in everybody.
Well, you don't really have to dig really hard to get it out of Nancy Pelosi, but.
Well, that reminds me of Evan. That reminds me of Evan Sayet. Evan Sayet, was a conservative comedian, but he used to be a writer for Bill Maher. And my response has always been, "Well, he used to be a writer for Bill Maher. It's enough to turn anybody conservative."
There were 2 other quotes that I got a kick out of. One is I called this the death scream of the of the permanent Democratic majority.
Yeah, this is funny, too. Yeah, I know where you're going, but go ahead.
And then Bernie Sanders calls Republican blocking of Citizens United Amendment, in other words, the Udall Sanders amendment that would have, in effect, repealed the First Amendment. Sanders called that a defeat for democracy, which actually is even funnier because in a way
exactly
that's
right.
not exactly.
All of that's there to protect us. All of that is there to protect us from the excesses of democracy. Yes, because we're a republic, you idiot. Democracy is a transitional government between republic and oligarchy.
That's exactly correct. So he was right without even realizing exactly how he was right.
Right for the wrong reason.
And that cracks me up because the left does that every once in a while. It's like with that Heller versus Washington D.C. case. They were right for the wrong reason. But anyway, go ahead. And then there is a political blogger for Esquire magazine named Charles Pierce.
Oh, this is juicy.
Oh, my goodness gracious. The headline at Newsbusters, according to Charles Pierce, GOP's obstruction of Obama's agenda has caused mass death abroad.
Yeah, it goes back to that. It goes back to what I said about Obama earlier. It's all our fault anyway. Of course.
Oh my goodness! Great. You want a quote, folks? I got a quote here. There may have been worse times for the United States to have a completely dysfunctional political system, but I can't think of one offhand. One of our two major political parties has rendered itself insane, and its antics have seemed to have unnerved the other political party to the point where everybody involved in the government is jumping at shadows, and we are coming into a midterm election in which the power of the insane party will likely be enhanced. The only question remaining is by how much?
Well, you know what cracks me up? This is what really cracks me up. See, when the left decides what the extreme right is, or that the Republicans are, they have to search high and low to find one crazy person that claims to be a Tea Party or something along those lines, and then use that obscure person to prove their point. When we paint the extreme left and tell you what they're all about, all we have to do is look for one of their mainstream politicians or writers or reporters to confirm what we had to say about them.
Oh, but I haven't even gotten to the punchline of Pierce's post yet. Here's the punchline. But the world doesn't need the United States scrambled and paralyzed by the kind of petty vandalism that has been practiced since 2009. Look at the Middle East. Look at Russia. Look at the dying countries of West Africa. Has all of that been worth it just to make a centrist Democratic president unable to govern according to his twice-bestowed mandate? How much death is enough?
Obama's a centrist?
Yeah, who knew?
You know, it's funny because Tom, the neurotic Tom, who used to be my troll, used to say the same thing. In fact, he used to tell me that Obama was actually kind of conservative for his taste. And my first thought was, well, of course, remember, this is the same guy that claimed that the Marxist regime that was in control of the Soviet Union was extremely right-wing, too. So I tell you what, if they're this, now I know you. One of the links was, "Hey GOP," like quoting, quoting a Han Solo. "Hey GOP, don't get cocky." And by the way, I did notice you picked up on that.
Toward the end of this. Toward the end of this
week.
Funny because
I was. I'm sorry. That's funny because that's exactly what came to mind when I put that Han Solo. That's hilarious that you picked up on. That's a crack up.
Hey kid, don't get cocky. But toward the end of this week, I should hasten to mention, in North Carolina, Tom Tillis, the Republican challenger to Democrat incumbent Kay Hagan, has dropped 11 points and is now 6 points behind. So just all carry. I mean, basically the Republicans are counting on dissatisfaction with Obama alone to carry them to victory, and it still might, but.
Yeah, but that was the attitude in 2012 when we saw what happened. Understand Republicans. Understand Republicans. The liberal left has a hell of a ground game, and they have a hell of a social media game. And until you guys figure out how to utilize both of those things, and also be able to catch them while they're doing their fraudulent things, and actually admit that that's what it was, Acorn, everybody think, oh no, that wasn't fraud. Until you guys get to the point where you're willing to admit that and fight the fight, it's like I try to tell everybody about the millennials. Everybody says, well, no, we should do just fine because the millennials just hate Obama. Just because they hate Obama doesn't mean they're running into our camp. We got to go get them.
That's the other side of the coin. That's the other side of the equation. So now I understand.
And trust me, trying to get out there to get people. Trust me, I understand how hard that is, considering what I do.
I understand there is an outstanding guest at the top of the hour here on Constitutional Radio.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And what's neat about it, if you go to Political Pistachio at the top of the hour, you'll see an image of me with him 3 years ago out there at Stagecoach, Nevada. He and I have a mutual friend, Andrea Shea King, and another mutual friend, Debbie Lee, America's Wounded Warriors. And he's going to be on the show. Here's what's really interesting. Did you see that nice, well, of course you did because you commented too. Remember that little thing that our good friend Fred posted on my Facebook and everybody just kind of chewing him up and spitting him out? You remember that?
Yeah.
Well, he at one point in that, and I actually, by the way, printed that out and brought it with me so I could actually repeat some of what was put into that thread, that Facebook thread. But at one point, he basically said, hey, where's the blacks and the first generation immigrants in your group? In other words, what he was trying to say was, see, you guys are a bunch of racists because you don't have blacks and immigrants. As conservatives, you're just a bunch of white people. That's what he was trying to say. But he's like, how come you're, he's like, it's like a dare. Well, how come your blacks and your first generation immigrants aren't speaking out? Well, I immediately, indicated that first of all, my wife is a first generation immigrant. He responded, well, I know that. No, he did. He forgot. He put that out there. He put that out there because that's the knee-jerk reaction of liberals. But anyway, and then I added our good friend G.R. Mobley, which has been on the show a number of times. You've met personally. His wife's black. And interestingly enough, this Saturday's guest today is Lloyd Marcus, Tea Party, man extraordinaire, and he's black. Now the thing is, I hate labeling him as a black Tea Party activist. He's a Tea Party activist. He's a conservative. That's it. The only reason why we even feel like we have to mention that he's black is because the left always brings race into it. And so we're like, well, wait a second. Why are you bringing race into it? There's plenty of, and the thing is, it doesn't matter if there's plenty of blacks or not. Just because you have fooled a large percentage of that particular group does not mean that automatically makes us racist. But anyway, but having him on the show, it was just kind of coincidental with that thread. I thought that was. But here's the thing. To let you know, Lloyd Marcus, he's a friend of mine on Facebook, and he actually liked that response that I had. So if you go over and check that response, and you see who liked it, he's one of them. But anyway, nice. So yeah, here's the thing about Lloyd. Here's the thing about Lloyd Marcus. The guy is, lack of a better way of putting it, freaking incredible. I mean, he is absolutely incredible. He has such a great message. He's such a great conservative. He really gets it. He's a fighter. He's out there making things happen, and he's an all-around great guy, nice guy. I have talked to him on the phone before, on Andrea Shea King's radio show before, and then personally out there at Stagecoach, Nevada, back in August of 2011 for that big Tea Party Express kickoff that year. He was a part of that as well. And that's the image you'll see. It's from 3 years ago. That'll be up on Political Pistachio at the top of the hour. he and I at that event. But he is an incredible guest. He's got a new album out. He's got a book out that's incredible. Basically, the reason why I brought him on, though, is because regardless of what you think of the Tea Party, I like the Tea Party. Yeah, I know.
I don't dislike the Tea Party.
Oh no, I didn't. I didn't say that. Well, although you are quicker to criticize certain Tea Party supported people than I am. But that said, I'm not saying that you don't like Tea Party. But the thing is, the reason why I bring that up is because locally there are certain candidates, and I'm not going to name names, but there are certain candidates who have said, hey, I agree with the Tea Party, this and that, but I'm not going to call myself Tea Party because I don't need that attached to me. like it is a stigma, and it's not a.
Yeah. No, it's not.
Because the Tea Party is not a party. The Tea Party is a grassroots movement. It's an attitude, really, more than it's a party. But anyway, the reason why I'm bringing them on is because, like every election, the word gets out by the media. Well, the Tea Party's dead, and there's nothing they can do. The Tea Party is not only not dead; it's alive and kicking. And people like Lloyd Marcus, they're out front waving the Tea Party flag. And that's why I wanted to bring him on, is to talk about how the Tea Party is alive and kicking and about these different races and how the Tea Party is still very influential. But like a marriage, the relationship that the Tea Party has with American people has changed. It's not because as the Tea Party has evolved, it's become less of a rally hungry type group to a let's be more involved in the political process type. That's what the Tea Party has evolved into. Just because you don't see the Tea Partiers out there rallying all the time does not mean it's dead. It just means that they've grown up a little bit politically and have gotten involved in the process. But anyway, that's the guest. I'm looking forward to it. Top of the hour, KCAA AM 1050. You can go ahead and plug it because I'm going to hurry up and run next door and get myself something because I haven't eaten yet today, and I got to run next door and get myself an egg roll or something. So
yeah, sounds
good
to me.
Yeah.
All right.
Top of the hour.
Top of the hour over at kcaaradio.com. Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs. We will be right back.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Our records indicate you've been lied to. Welcome to the truth. Douglas V. Gibbs on KCAA 1050 AM.
All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
They say never keep a lady waiting, and then I just did precisely that. So.
That's okay. I realize it's hard enough for two to talk without talking over each other. It's almost impossible with three.
Well, yeah, it sounds like a crossfire, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the way. I love Hannity's views, but I hate how he talks over his guests. It makes it difficult to hear either one, and he's got a bad habit of that.
Well,
even though his liberal guests deserve to be talked over.
Sometimes his guests just don't know when to shut up. I mean, what do they think they are, guests? I mean, I don't know.
So, yeah, I heard you guys talking about Nancy Pelosi. That was that's a gem. I mean, she's made some dumb statements in the past, but that was a good one.
Oh, yeah. Do I have that? Yeah. You mean Nancy Pelosi?
Remember when you ran away and I got on my knees and begged you not to leave because I go berserk? Well, you left me anyhow, and then the days got worse and worse, and now you see I've gone completely out of my mind. And they're coming to take me away, ha-ha, they're coming to take me away, ho-ho, hee-hee, ha-ha, to the funny farm where life is beautiful all the time, and I'll be happy to see those nice young men in their clean white coats, and they're coming to take me away, ha-ha!
If only.
Yeah, civilization will come to an end if the Republicans regain the majority in the Senate. Yeah,
because it's doing so well right now.
Yeah, it's running like a well-oiled machine.
Oh, my sister, just because she replied to some of these liberal, I don't know if you see the memes they put up sometimes. I don't normally get, it was like all re-elect Democrats in 2014 and probably something new, and since she's my friend and she responded, I saw them, and the idiocy is just, they're still saying, well, if we'd never gone into Iraq, this would never be happening, and it's all Bush's fault, and, you know, Obama didn't have anything to do with it. It's just enough to make you tear your hair out, that there are still people in the world that think like that.
See, I on the show page today at blogtalkradio.com/American Daily Review, I called this the death scream of the permanent Democratic majority. And I think that's a very accurate appellation, description of this particular phenomenon. Did you hear, did you hear what Bernie Sanders said?
Oh, I've read a lot of what he's said lately. That that dude, he's another one that kind of makes you splutter and spit all over your monitor when you see something.
You'll notice that his co-sponsor for that constitutional amendment that would effectively repeal the First Amendment over the Citizens United ruling and trying to overturn that. His co-sponsor was Tom Udall, Democrat of New Mexico, who, by the way, is 21 points up in the poll, so you can see why he was the co-sponsor instead of, let's say his cousin Mark Udall, who is fighting for his electoral life against Republican Cory Gardner in Colorado. I don't think that's any coincidence.
No.
And Sanders saying that Republicans' blocking of his amendment is a defeat for democracy, which actually is not an inaccurate statement, because we're not.
But he's wrong, right for the wrong reasons. Is that the way Doug put it?
Yes. We're not supposed to be a democracy. We're supposed to be a constitutional federal republic.
Yeah, those fools don't know that.
Democracy is, it's become colloquialized. People just think, government by consent of the government, that's democracy. No, democracy is mob rule. The analogy that Doug uses, and it's a good one, is that a democracy is a lion, and you could pick your animals, a lion and a zebra, or a tiger and a wildebeest, or a wolf and a sheep, holding a vote on who is going to be dinner. Whereas a republic is a wolf and an armed sheep holding that same conversation.
Good.
So democracy in a democracy, the majority rules, the minority is screwed. Minority has no rights. The majority can do whatever they want. In a republic, in a constitutional republic, the rights of the minority are protected. That's why the very idea, for example, getting rid of the filibuster in the Senate has been referred to as the nuclear option, because it's getting rid of minority rights. The Senate, continue with that analogy, is the Senate is supposed to it's supposed to be a super house. You know, the House of Representatives is a simple majority rule, but the Senate is supposed to be, you know, it's supposed to represent the states. Originally it did. It hasn't since 1917, the 17th Amendment. But it's supposed to represent the states. It's supposed to be more deliberative. It's supposed to be, it's for the checks and balances. The founding fathers built into the system. Everybody is supposed to be checked. Senate's supposed to be checked. The House, the President, the courts, the people.
How's that working out?
There you go. So. No system's perfect.
Well, like you've said many times, if they ignore the law, then the law really doesn't, it doesn't matter. If he's going to ignore it, then, why have it?
And that gets back to something that John Adams said. Remember when John Adams said that only a virtuous people can, I forget the exact quote, but the gist of it was that only a virtuous people can long sustain a republic. Yeah. Because it involves self-restraint. It involves mutual submission, everybody agreeing to play by the same rules. If you get somebody, like a Barack Obama decides, well, the rules don't apply to me, so I'm just going to seize power and I'm just going to do whatever the heck I want, well, then did that. And something Doug said earlier in this hour, the Constitution was designed to protect the American people against precisely the kind of person, the kind of president that Barack Obama is.
Yep, that's true.
But if the voters are not vigilant, if the voters are not informed, if the voters don't take their responsibility of popular sovereignty seriously, then we end up with what we got today.
Yeah, when we have the media, I mean, I don't blame all of the media. I don't blame it all on the media, but I blame a lot of it on the media. The information's there to find if you want to find it. We know what it is. But they have systematically helped the Democrats tear down any semblance of personal responsibility and making it on your own without government help. That's exactly what they do not want. So Democrats do whatever they can to keep black people and poor people from thinking they can do better in America when we know they can. But that's the last thing they want them to find out.
Well, a free press is supposed to be independent. That's traditionally the way it always was. Not that there weren't partisan media outlets, but they were, number one, they were open about it, and number two, there was a variety. I mean, remember, you look back in American history, and in the 19th century, and even into the early 20th century, and you see, you read about, this newspaper, that's a Republican newspaper, and then this newspaper was Democratic, and just back and forth, and everybody knew it, so it was all out in the open. It wasn't this one giant monolithic viewpoint, the narrative,
to be objective.
Claiming to be objective, and so, and that's the purpose of a free press, is to keep a vigilant people, a vigilant electorate informed so that they can vote intelligently and vote relevantly.
Yeah. The electorate has to want to be informed, too. I think there are so many with their heads in the sand, I'm a Democrat, I'm going to vote Democrat. My daddy was a Democrat, so that it doesn't matter what they do. It absolutely does not matter. If they're a Democrat, they're going to get their votes. And those people are so far gone. The people still defending this pathetic excuse for a president are so far gone, I don't think they can be reached.
Well, I don't know how, it would have been very interesting to see how my in-laws, who were of that mindset, they were how when you're young, your political viewpoints are in your formative years. You develop your political viewpoints, and it can be influenced by big events that happen in the country. Well, my in-laws were Great Depression, so they were born in the early 1920s. They grew up they became politically of age. FDR was president, so they were just lifelong Democrats, even though they lived more. They were American Gothic. I mean, they were ma and pa kettle. They lived conservatively. Yeah,
that happens a lot.
Family values, traditional marriage. I mean, but because they in their formative years, FDR was their influence. They were lifelong Democrats. It would have been very interesting because you see, my in-laws passed away in 2007, 2008, effectively. So they never saw Barack Obama as president. They didn't live to see it. I envy them in some ways.
Yeah.
But it would have been fascinating to see how they would have reacted to Barack Obama. Whether it would have made a difference, whether they would have, been objective enough to, it's funny how only conservatives seem to have enough presence of mind to be able to call out their own party when their own party is straying from the path. Whereas with although
Democrats don't do that.
Well, no, school the wagons, which there's some practical value to that too, but still, for all the talk about, for all their psychological projection about how it's the GOP and conservatives that are partisan. It's the GOP and conservatives that are rock-ribbed and don't tolerate any alternative viewpoints and so on and so forth. And when of course the opposite is the case, but
that happens a lot. They're always accusing us of what they do. There's nothing more hypocritical than a liberal. Just they're sickeningly hypocritical. I have my aunt. I've got so many relatives. They're good people, and like as you said, live conservatively, but they vote Democrat because I don't know, for lack of a better word, they just don't know any better. It's just when you ask them why, they'll our senator here in Indiana, the one that was running for senator, and they got on all that rape thing and just blew that
Donnelly.
Totally out of proportion.
Donnelly, or not Donnelly. He's the one. He's a Democrat. I forget his name now. Richard.
Yeah, I do too.
Joe Donnelly.
Yeah, that's against Donnelly. But when she said that, I just turned around and said, "You have got to be kidding me! You are, And I told her the truth about how it was blown out of proportion, what he really said. But it was in her mind, that little earworm, and she voted against him and voted for Barack Obama. I about turned around and smacked her when she said that.
Earworm, I like that. That's all it takes. That's why our candidates. That's why our candidates have to be. They have to be very careful in what they say, what they don't say, because anything like that. In other words, our candidates do not have the luxury of saying, "Well, you know what I mean." Well, what I meant to say was, no, they can't do that. You got to get it right. We don't have any margin for error. We just don't. So it shouldn't have to be that way, but it is. And now you're looking at making significant gains in the Senate this fall, but then I seem to recall a couple of years ago we were looking at making significant gains in the Senate, and how'd that turn out?
Yeah, that was the worst night I can think of for a long time when I started seeing all our senators not being elected and him ahead.
Bam.
Oh, it was just made me sick. When Mark came in and of course I couldn't sleep, but he came in and said he'd been reelected. I just bawled like a baby. He didn't know what to do with me.
Well, that definitely had. It told me and told anybody who was willing to face up to it volumes about the state of this country, about its political culture, about and here we are 2 years later, and now this November 4th, it's only 7.5 weeks away, and when you think about it that way, you realize how close it really is. Yeah, fewer than 2 months. That will also be very telling.
Yeah, I agree with Doug. We can't depend on dissatisfaction with Obama. We've got to give them something to vote for, not just something to vote against.
Well, it's the other side of the coin. It's the other side of the equation. You can make the case against the other guy, but then, and it gets back to this idea of brands. The Republican brand.
Yeah.
that you hear so much about. Well, the Republican brand, it's not so much that it hasn't been improved, except by contrast. But if it's not, it brings to mind something that the last great Democrat president said. By the way, can you guess who the last great Democrat president was?
Kennedy?
Grover Cleveland. The only president ever to serve non-consecutive terms, 1884 to 1888 and 1892 to 1896. And he was a conservative. He would be a Tea Partier today. I mean, that's how conservative he was. And he said something that I've never forgotten. When the first moment I read it, he said, "What is the use of running for office if you don't stand for something?"
True.
And words of wisdom, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right.
Go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing with you. I just about the Republicans. They're just going to have to ignore the press. They're never going to get good press. So they might as well just accept that and just go on and stand for something instead of being afraid of what they're going to say.
I mean, they have the perfect setting for doing so. So I mean, why not?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like,
what they got to lose.
What they got to lose? Yeah. Well, I mean, they can regain the Senate, and then it'll actually force Barack Obama to have to veto his own bills. So. Yeah, step in the right direction.
Talk about executive orders.
Plug yourself, Jen.
Yeah, Jen's Gyrations at blogspot.com. Come see me.
And if you can arrange for the URL to just be jensgyrations.com, and it automatically sends you to that place, so much the better. As we go over to kcaaradio.com for Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs. Join us. Hour number 3 begins in mere moments.